Good morning, everyone. Dr. Gerard Yee, Chairman of the Charity Council, Mr. David Gerald, Founder, President, and CEO of Securities Investors Association Singapore, Professor Chong Hee Kiat, President of SUSS, Professor Robbie Goh, Provost of SUSS, ladies and gentlemen, really warm welcome, good morning, and if nothing else, it's great to see everyone here now in person. And I'm not sure I had another occasion where so many people are looking at me now without your mask. And I can now see the bottom half of your face. And if I don't recognize you, it's because for the last 2.5 years, I've only seen you from the top half of your face. So please excuse me. This is my third time joining all of you at the Charity Governance Conference, but the first time in person. SIS, Securities Investors Association Singapore, has once again co-organized this year's conference with the Charity Council. I'd like to start by thanking David and your team for continuing to support this. It's an important effort, and as we were chatting earlier, there's actually a lot of synergy between the work and the ethos of SIAS and charities. Fundamentally, good governance, strong oversight, confidence of the public, all of these are common qualities that we share, and I think it's very synergistic that we're doing this with SIAS. In addition, I'd like to warmly welcome Singapore University of Social Sciences. He has come on board this year as the knowledge partner, a co-organizer. It's always encouraging to see new partners come on board. Last evening, I was at another function with Prof. Chong, and he came up to me and said, just tell me what else more we can do. And here he is this morning, taking on this job. I think he never quite expected that it would happen so soon. I also want to take the opportunity to acknowledge our Charity Council. I've not been able to meet with you in person, so I'm very glad to have been able to chat with some of you this morning. It's a very important role that you play. I think it's, as we speak about governance beyond adversity as well as the topic this morning, it's important that we portray a sense of strong oversight leadership and that we look at charities today no longer as the charities of something akin to an image of carrying a tin can around, giving out a sticker when you toss a couple of coins into a tin. Charities has become a big sector, and confidence in the system, confidence in the governance, oversight, transparency, and a strong sense of accountability. These are all very important qualities. And on that score, I'm very glad to see so many luminaries and thought leaders on our Charity Council. All of you lend those qualities to our charity sector, and I thank you very much for that. SUSS involvement today, besides Prof. Chong's promise and desire to step forward for something extra, also sends a signal that we are now looking at charities and looking at society in a way in which we can see how we can really move the needle when we say we want to build a society where everyone has a stake, where everyone feels included, where no one is left behind. Everyone can take part in what we do well, flourish, and to be able to do so with dignity and respect. And indeed, this has been a key focus of the government. Over the last couple of years, we've been very focused on a number of issues. One, establishing a new school for children with multiple disabilities to ensure that at the start, we try and level up as much as we can. We've also set up a new para-sport academy. Wearing my MCCY hat in particular, I think sports is a tremendous leveler, a tremendous way to have people feel included. And you just have to listen to some of our para-athletes talk about how they feel when they're in the pool, one and the same with anyone else. How when they are riding on a horse in equestrian, they feel no less inferior to the person next to them who is fully functional. And these are all stories which remind us that we all have a part to play as we want to try and level our society up. So the Para-Sport Academy is designed precisely to do that, to use sports as a platform to level up. We also have other initiatives to increase protection for our vulnerable workers, or migrant workers in particular. All of these are some examples of the steps that we're taking as a government, working with everyone in society to make sure that Singapore truly becomes a more inclusive society. At the same time, charities are at the forefront of our efforts to build that strong, caring, gracious, inclusive society. And all of you, in whichever charity sector you're in, all of you provide services that benefit society in one way or another, big or small, tangible, or indeed also intangible. And this in turn gives rise to opportunities that will bring people together for good causes. The theme for this year's conference, Governance Beyond Adversity. The discussion topics that you will discuss today in person, tomorrow online, will help us to reflect on our achievements over the years. Not so much to crow about it or to show that we are, but rather to show that we have come some distance. And it's important to look back at our achievements to decide on how to chart a future course as we move ahead. We want to also explore the areas that we want to work on moving forward, and how, in particular, we can shore up our own capabilities, our own resilience to take on future adversity. Governance, in my view, plays a key part to all these plans. It undergirds all these plans, and it's a key pillar on which confidence in charities will be built. Because good governance in charities is fundamentally a critical enabler and indeed a catalyst for the success of charities. When the public sees that charities are well governed, organized, transparent, accountable, there will be greater trust in the individual charity. And very often, all the good work of so many charities can be undone by one or two small occasions when there is a lack of transparency and when something adverse happens. So as a sector, collectively, we all have an obligation, indeed a duty, to ensure that we move forward as a whole. This means a greater willingness for individuals and corporates who are prepared to step forward to serve, resulting in even more resources for the communities that we serve, and in the long term, enabling the public to feel more confident and willing to engage, work with, and help the charities. Such an increased awareness and understanding of the different challenges and issues faced by our communities can lead to more people with a heart to serve stepping forward for these causes. I know that all our charities understand good governance and that it is an important, tangible step that we can take to becoming a more caring society. They have been on this governance journey with us for the past 15 years at least, since the launch on the first Code of Governance. But as our society evolves, more challenges, different paradigms, and the lessons taught to us by the recent pandemic, and bear in mind, it is, when I say recent, it doesn't mean it's over yet, by the way. All of these means that we do need to consider how we can pivot, change, renew, refresh, and become more relevant and more reactionary and responsive to global trends. So we need to review our policies and develop initiatives that makes us more resilient, future-proof moving forward. Today, I'd like to share 2 steps that the COC's office will take to help us on that journey. The first is to capitalize on opportunities, and the second, to address possible emerging risks. First, we will make it easier for registered and exempt charities to raise funds through house-to-house and street campaigns, whilst at the same time making it safe for donors. Our current framework is for qualifying entities such as registered charities to obtain permits before they can conduct such fundraising campaigns. But this, we know, imposes an administrative burden on registered charities. We've consulted widely with stakeholders, with the public, on how to improve the situation to make it more efficient and make it less resource-heavy when it comes to trying to raise funds. Based on that feedback, we aim to roll out a revised regime next year. Registered and exempt charities and fundraising for foreign charitable purposes, or FRFCP, the permit holders only need to disclose these fundraising campaigns on the charity portal before they commence such fundraising activities. Donors can verify the legitimacy of these campaigns instantly by searching the charity portal, which is centrally controlled by the COC's office. COC's office will provide more specific details on this when they are ready. The second step we will take is to launch the Terrorist Financing Risk Mitigation Toolkit. Let me explain why. With greater cross-border flow of funds, and that is a feature not only in the corporate world, but certainly in charities as well. A charity could be exposed to terrorist financing and money laundering schemes. Whilst there's currently no indication of funds flowing in via our charities to support domestic terrorism-related activities, and there are no funds raised by charities to fund terrorism-related activities abroad. So at the moment, we don't see any of these onshore or offshore. Nonetheless, because of emerging trends and what we see around the world around us, we cannot afford to be complacent. Indeed, in the Singapore's Terrorist Financing National Risk Assessment, which was published in December 2020, non-profit organizations, including charities, have been identified to be at medium to low risk of abuse linked to terrorist financing. So it tells us that whilst nothing adverse has happened, we must watch out for what is ahead of us and look at the headwinds that we might sail into and respond and react before we get into those headwinds. It is essential that we are aware of the risk of potential abuse and remain vigilant, forward-looking, and safeguard our charities now against such potential abuse. So the new Terrorist Financing Risk Mitigation Toolkit will raise awareness and enhance our individual and collective knowledge on these issues. The toolkit will guide you to identify or better identify terrorist financing risk, be able to assess the level of that risk, and then prioritize and mitigate the identified risk in a systemic, organized manner. We developed this toolkit by working closely together with charities, looking at it from your perspective, understanding the risk, looking at the risk profile, and also understanding the workflow of each of these activities. The charities have participated in numerous focus group discussions with us and provided us a lot of views, feedback, and suggestions. How all of these will come together to make this toolkit a useful and, I hope, resourceful one, which is at the same time also practical, bearing in mind the functions of each of the charities, big and small. We aim to push out this toolkit by the end of this year. As I conclude, let me just say that the last few years we know have not been easy. We are very fortunate today that we are back here in person, seeing each other without our masks, interacting, opening up, and not just opening up, but being able to do so confidently and safely. But we know that the charity sector has had to navigate the impact of COVID-19, and that's not a small challenge. At the same time, whilst you feel that crunch from donations, from having to deal with more challenges, working in a COVID-19 environment, you continue to have to serve the people who rely on your charities, your beneficiaries. So to that extent, let me just say that I tremendously appreciate and applaud your determination to see that mission through. Despite the challenges that you face, despite the difficulties that you face, I think fundamentally all of our charities have kept a very clear eye on who their beneficiaries are and how you could, despite these challenges, continue to serve them. I'm very sure that you will continue to build on these existing foundations. We talk about these challenges and we talk about governance beyond adversity, but we also know that we are not doing this from a position of weakness. We are doing this from a position of strength, having come through the last 2.5 years of adversity, having built up a strong reservoir of experience, having built up a strong reservoir of resources as well. We do this now from a position of strength to renew, refresh, and to face forward adversities with a lot of confidence. I'm sure you continue to acquire new knowledge, new capabilities, new resources, bring your charities, aim for a higher governance standards so that in many ways you can serve more. For the public to associate with the charities, to have confidence in the charities and its leadership. On that note, there will be many issues that you speak about, talk about, exchange knowledge on, know-how today. But I hope that you leave this conference, especially this year's conference when we can gather in person, with a lot more networks, business or otherwise, opportunities, relationships, renew old ones, make new acquaintances. Because fundamentally, what drives this sector, beyond the governance, beyond the corporate oversights and so on, are the people-to-people relations. And in this room, we see many of the thought leaders of the charity sector. And I hope that all of you continue to remain strong, build a strong camaraderie between each of you, and together foster a stronger sense of governance in the charity sector. On that note, I wish all of you a very pleasant morning. Enjoy the conference, make new acquaintances, renew old ties, and enjoy the next 2 days. Thank you very much.